That's the goal. That's what they want to have happen. And this is the way they're going to spin it to the wider public. Zelensky, Churchill #2, was brave. He was brave and courageous. I believe Stammer or Mertz actually said this. He was brave and courageous. He ended up traveling to Turkey, ready to meet with Putin, and Putin decided not to show up. Yes. Therefore, U.S. President Trump, you have to put bone-crushing sanctions, Lindsey Graham bone-crushing sanctions on Russia. And Ukraine, Zelensky actually said in an interview, I believe with Spiegel, that once those U.S. sanctions are placed on Russia, it's over. It's over for the Russian Federation. This is the belief that they have in their heads. I mean, another wonder weapon. This time, the wonder weapon is the U.S. sanctions. Not that the U.S. hasn't already placed 500,000 sanctions on Russia anyway. Your thoughts?
Well, exactly. I mean, this is the key thing to understand, because the Europeans and the Ukrainians are demanding a ceasefire and have been demanding a ceasefire. Zelensky is also saying that the only thing he's prepared to talk about with the Russians is a ceasefire, which the Russians have already said that's not enough. That this is impossible. So the entire effort by Europe and by Lindsey Graham and his people in Washington has been to try to get Donald Trump to sign off on further sanctions against Russia. Ultimately, they want Trump to commit to sanctions because they believe that if Trump commits to sanctions, he is once again fully engaged in Project Ukraine. Zelensky isn't interested in negotiations. If he was genuinely interested in negotiations, he would rescind his October 2022 decree. If the Europeans were interested in negotiations, they would tell Zelensky to rescind his October 2022 decree. I mean, Macron has actually given an interview in which he said, we've given Ukraine everything we've got. We can't give Ukraine any more. Our army isn't even configured for this kind of war. Very, very interesting admission, by the way, from Macron. So it's not about that. It is about keeping the washing machine working. This is all that it's about. It is about nothing else, ultimately. And you can't keep the washing machine working if Donald Trump wants to switch it off. And of course, he's got his finger on the switch. He can switch it off. So the whole point about this is to get him to take his finger off the switch.
One of the goals for the Russian team is to secure the release of Russian citizens from Kursk that are being held by Ukraine. True?
Yeah. Absolutely. This is absolutely true. I mean, there's a really rather horrifying report which the Russians have published, which I am afraid I believe, by the way, which is saying that the Ukrainians are holding some of these citizens and basically using them as hostages.
These are citizens, not
citizens.
Soldiers.
These are civilians.
Civilians.
These are civilians in order to try to extract, essentially Azov Brigade people from Russia. So, and if you actually look at the makeup of the Russian negotiating team, you see that some of the people who are involved, who are participating, are the kind of people you would expect to participate in order to achieve that objective. Now, what I suspect the Russians are hoping for is that they will get the Americans involved in some way. That I'm assuming that some of these negotiators will meet with the Americans, even if the Ukrainians fail to show that they will speak to the Americans, and they will try to get the Americans to do something about this. Whether the Americans will or won't, we'll just have to wait and see. But you're absolutely correct. That is a major priority for the Russians. It is an immediate priority for the Russians. It's all over the Russian media, by the way. It's a big story.
But in the West, they're not talking about it.
Well, the West are not. Well, they never talk about any of these things. Now, it's a very interesting speech that Trump gave in Saudi Arabia, where he was more critical of the neocons and by the way, called them by that name, which they don't like. They don't like being called neocons, by the way. But anyway, he called them by that name. He was absolutely scathing about them, and about the damage that they have done to the Middle East, and about the damage that they have done to the United States' position on the Middle East. It's the strongest anti-neocon speech that he has ever given. And I have to say, when I read it, and the White House has been very, very slow in providing details of it, which is very interesting in itself and rather concerning, by the way. But I wonder whether it reflects the frustrations that Trump feels about the pressure that's being piled on him to get back behind Project Ukraine. I think he deep down simply doesn't believe in this project, and the fact that they're pushing him all the time to get back involved in it is something that he resents massively. But it looks as if, for all kinds of reasons, he's not prepared to break with them over it.